6 decades after the British novelist and chemist C.P. Snow famously decried the gulf of mutual incomprehension between the sciences and the humanities, the chasm often seems larger than ever. Science has grown more technically demanding over the years, even as the shared public experience of art and culture has fragmented. Within wellness paradigm of care, there would still be a place for use of medications that help people feel differently, at least for a time: sedatives, tranquilizers, and so forth. And you would still want to fund science that seeks to better understand the many pathways to debilitating mood states and to psychosis, and yes, whatever biological vulnerabilities that may be present. Most bond funds have credit risk, which is the risk that companies or other issuers whose bonds are owned by the fund may fail to pay their debts, including the debt owed to the holder of their bonds. Some funds have little credit risk, such as those that invest in insured bonds or U.S. Treasury bonds. But be careful, nearly all bond funds have interest rate risk, which means that the market value of the bonds they hold will go down when interest rates go up. Salamanders are group on amphibians typically characterized by a lizard-like appearance, with slender bodies, blunt snouts, short limbs projecting at right angles to the body, and the presence of a tail in both larvae and adults. With climate change, plants of future will consume more water than in the present day, leading to less water available for people living in North America and Eurasia according to a new study. The research suggests a drier future despite anticipated precipitation increases for places like the United States and Europe, populous regions already facing water stresses. If a doctor expects a treatment to be successful, a patient may experience less pain and have better outcomes, according to a new study. The findings reveal how social interactions between hypothetical healthcare providers and patients have the power to influence how patients perceive the effectiveness of a treatment, even when it is a placebo. Hunters of extraterrestrial life may want to listen particularly closely for signals originating at star systems within that narrow band of galactic sky. Advanced civilizations there may have already detected using the transit method, they say, and may now be sending us a message. You might think of this paper, then, like a treasure map, for intelligent life. Bioperturbation, the disturbance of soils by animals, is an important and often essential functional component of many ecosystems worldwide. It determines the spatiotemporal characteristics of soil patches and thereby contributes to the ecosystem's diversity and heterogeneity. The soil disturbances by animals affect both physical and chemical soil properties. These disturbances create vegetation-free areas, shape soil topography, alter soil density and structure, change infiltration properties and soil moisture, influence the nutrient situation, and contribute to carbon cycling and nutrient turnover. For a detailed account of species, Rites of passage are one deep avenue to experience this love in our bones. Once realized, the care for the earth, the connection and experience of nature, and our part and place in the whole, will inform our future, our care for all of life. Without this care, and a true understanding of interdependence, our actions and lives may well be fragmented, divisive, and destructive. In meteorology, precipitation is any product of the condensation of atmospheric water vapor that falls under gravity. The main forms of precipitation include drizzle, rain, sleet, snow and hail. Astronomers have recently discovered a large cloud of gas in which many new stars are being formed, not far from our own solar system. While it would seem surprising that this phenomenon hadn't been previously noticed, the researchers explained that recent innovations in measuring the distance of gas clouds more accurately led to this discovery after older observations were reinterpreted. Fin whale songs contain signals that are reflected and refracted within the crust, including the sediment and the solid rock layers beneath. These signals, recorded on seismometers on the ocean bottom, can be used to determine the thickness of the layers as well as other information relevant to seismic research. Literature allows us to move beyond the inevitable boundaries of our own lives and culture because it introduces us to people different from ourselves, places remote from ourselves, places remote from our neighborhoods, and times other than our own. Reading makes us more aware of life's possibilities as well as its subtleties and ambiguities. Another virtue that both propagate is that the present is meant to be enjoyed to the fullest. It is no use fretting about the past for it cannot be undone or overturned, and no use pondering too much about the future for it remains unseen. The day being thought about may never dawn on you. The ultimate service, however, remains the one done for your fellow man. Current research models indicate that climate change associated with increasing levels of greenhouse gases is likely to lead to the soils in the interiors of the major continents drying out. In response to a drying of cropland, people are likely to seek either new sources of irrigation water or new, wetter areas to farm. If we choose desalination of seawater as a possible solution, large amounts of energy will be required. Much of today's business is conducted across international borders, and while the majority of the global business community might share the use of English as a common language, the nuances and expectations of business communications might differ greatly from culture to cultures. Finally, the experimenters examined real insects. To see if leg adhesion might also play a role in the walking coordination of real files, they put polymer drops on the flies' legs to cover the claws and adhesive pad as if the flies were wearing boots and watched what happened. The files quickly began to use bipod-like leg coordination similar to the one discovered in the simulation. Reserve requirements are the proportions of the deposits that banks must keep on hand and are not allowed so lent out. For example, if the reserve requirement is 10% and you deposit $100 in a bank, the bank can lend $90 of that $100 to someone else, but it is not allowed to lend the remaining $10. Modern science says, the sun is the past, the earth is the present, the moon is the future. From an incandescent mass we have originated, and into a frozen mass we shall turn. Merciless is the law of nature, and rapidly and irresistibly we are drawn to our doom. Having the same dream again and again is a well-known phenomenon. Nearly two-thirds of the population report having recurring dreams. Being chased, finding yourself naked in a public place in the middle of a natural disaster, losing your teeth, or forgetting to go to class for an entire semester are typical recurring scenarios in these dreams. From a child's point of view, what is the purpose of TV advertising? Is advertising on TV done to give actors the opportunity to take a rest or practice their lines? Or is it done to make people buy things? Furthermore, is the main difference between program and commercials that commercials are for real, whereas programs are not, or that programs are for kids and commercials for adults? As a child, you might dream one day of becoming an astronaut and, the next day, of becoming a bullet dancer. The possibilities are endless. Eventually, this wealth of choice is whittled down by external circumstances and internal interests. Similarly, precursor cells in early embryos make a drive of stepwise decisions governed by external forces and internal factors to generate the diverse array of cell types present in adult organisms. Seismology is the scientific study of earthquakes and the propagation of elastic waves through the Earth or through other planet-like bodies. The field also includes studies of earthquake environmental effects such as tsunamis as well as diverse seismic sources such as volcanic, tectonic, glacial, fluvial, ocean, atmospheric and atmospheric processes such as explosions. A related field that uses geology to infer information regarding past earthquakes is paleoseismology. The speaker reminisces about his view of the English Revolution when he was a student and how it seemed quite clear which side he was on, the aristocrats, not the Puritans. Later he realized there was more to it than that, and there were several ways of interpreting the revolution: as a struggle between the king and parliament, as a class war, or as an unpredictable situation without clear sides. An economic depression is a period of sustained, long-term downturn in economic activity in one or more economies, is severe than a recession, which is a slowdown in economic activity over the course of a normal business cycle. Economic depressions are characterized by their length, and by abnormally large increases in unemployment rate. History is selective. What history books tell us about the past is not everything that happened, but what historians have selected. They cannot put in everything. Choices have to be made. Choices must similarly be made about which aspects of the past should be formally taught to the next generation in the shape of school history lessons. Nell says that in order to seek protection from their furry foes, birds actually prefer to build their nests in plats of swamp with a resident alligator. In fact, in one study, a graduate student plated fake alligators. The birds seem to prefer to build nests close to them. Where there's a water source, there are alligators, so it's sort of this moat of protection around these colonies. Over time a split would have appeared in wolf populations, he says, those wolves that feared humans, and those that didn't. So this would have facilitated, I think, the domestication process. At which point humans deliberately took wolves as pets. But that domestication process, France says, may have happened more than once, first in the West domestication process, West in Europe, and again in the Far East, in Asia. A ubiquitous neurotransmitter that carries signals between brain cells, dopamine, among its many functions, is involved in multiple aspects of cognitive processing. The chemical messenger has been extensively studied from the perspective of external cues, or deterministic signals.